Let's talk all things Devils hockey with Trey Matthews, host for the Locked On Devils podcast. Trey, thank you for joining us. First time having you on, man. Very, very appreciative of you coming on with us, talking Devils hockey today. Let's talk about this team and how they've just been absolutely plagued with injuries. And because of that, they've dropped 4 of their last 5. How bad has this team been hit?
Well, the biggest difference from this year compared to last year was the cohesiveness. But the problem is like you just alluded to, they've been dealing with a lot of injuries. So I made a list of players that have dealt with an injury at some point this season. So Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes, Jonas Siegenthaler, Tomas Nosek, Eric Haula, Dougie Hamilton, Timo Meier, Andre Palat, Colin Miller, Curtis Lazar, Nico Dawes. Prior to being brought up, he had to have off-season hip surgery. So it's definitely been an uphill battle this year for the New Jersey Devils as they've been plagued with injury. Now, to talk about their more recent struggle, I think it goes back to the game against the Chicago Blackhawks in which Jack Hughes sustained an arm injury. And ever since then, like you said, they have dropped 4 of their last 5. However, I don't think it tells the full story. So their first game without Jack Hughes after his second injury of the year, they lost to the Canucks 6-4. But they still had a decent fight back. But against the Tampa Bay Lightning, they took into OT. They walked away with a point. The Florida Panthers, the reigning Eastern Conference champions, they won 4-1 thanks to Nico Dawes in net. Then the next game against the Boston Bruins on MLK Day, they lost 3-0 in a shootout. So during that recent road trip, they accumulated 3 of potential 6 points without Jack Hughes, without Andre Palat, without Timo Meier. So I think they did the battle the best they could. But in this recent game against the Montreal Canadiens, it's been an absolute stinker because the schedule is not going to get much easier after the Columbus Blue Jackets game.
Like you said, they've been competitive, but as you know, it's all about W's and L's, wins and losses. And again, they dropped 4 of those last 5. So if you're Lindy Ruff, you know how bad your roster is when it comes to injuries. What changes or adjustments do you make, and who has to step up for this squad?
Well, I think the biggest adjustment that's been a main talking point throughout the Devils discourse is giving Alexander Holtz more ice time, because Lindy Ruff controversially said why Alexander Holtz doesn't get as much ice time as his numbers might reflect. But the thing is that Alexander Holtz has been putting up some decent production on the offensive side of things for the Devils. Now, yes, he does have a few things to clean up. I'm not saying he's a perfect player, but I think he has so much untapped potential. And I just want to make something perfectly clear. Where you're at on the line does not equal ice time. So I have no problem with Alexander Holtz playing on the bottom 6, but I think he deserves a couple extra minutes, considering the fact that he got the game-tying goal in the previous matchup against the Canadiens. So I think Holtz has a lot of untapped potential that can be unleashed to help the Devils on the offensive side of things, because ever since they lost Jack Hughes, their offensive firepower just has not been the same, because Hughes is the engine that drives this car for the Devils. And unfortunately, he's still sidelined due to his arm injury. So you need an offensive spark. Michael McLeod has been a huge offensive spark for the Devils, but I think Alexander Holtz can definitely be a go-to guy for the Devils moving forward. Like I said, he's not perfect, but I think he deserves a bigger role.
All right, we're going to keep our eye on Holtz's TOI on Friday when they play the Blue Jackets. Usually, we'd say that's a guaranteed W, but they did just lose to the Habs. So if you're Lindy Ruff, you're talking to this team, what do you tell the team in terms of getting them back on track against Columbus, especially having to play the Stars the night after?
Well, here's the thing. It's not just the Dallas Stars. After the Stars game, they got to take on the reigning Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights, then the Carolina Hurricanes, and then the Tampa Bay Lightning. Then we head into the All-Star break. So according to Bill Spalding, during a recent telecast, he says that the Devils have the 5th hardest schedule in the league prior to the All-Star break. So it's not going to be an easy battle for the Devils. And it goes back to that game against the Canadiens, in which you should have racked up those 2 points. And that's been a big talk of the town for the Devils throughout the course of the year, because they have dropped games against Anaheim Ducks, San Jose Sharks, Columbus Blue Jackets the first time they played them around American Thanksgiving time, and now recently against the Montreal Canadiens. That's 4 to 8 potential points that you've left on the table. And Bill also talked about this in the previous telecast. Had the Devils won the game against the Canadiens, they'd be sitting first in the wild card. Or if they racked up all those 8 points, if they had won all those potential games that I just listed, they'd be second in the Metro behind the New York Rangers, but instead they're second to last in the Metro. So this next game against the Blue Jackets, I know it's a little early to be talking about must wins, but you really want to try to win that game because you don't know when your next points are going to come, especially with how difficult the schedule is leading up to the All-Star break. So if I'm Lindy Ruff, you got to win those games that you potentially got to win.
Yeah, you got to win now to make things easier at the end of the year when we're talking seeding and even getting into the playoffs. Hey, man, this was great, Trey. Tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me over at X at TreyMatt4 or my show's X page app at Locked On Devils, and you can listen to Locked On Devils wherever you get your podcast from. We're also available on YouTube.
All right, man. Thanks for hopping on with us.
Thanks so much, Brandon.